Hello, my name is Robert Jamison, and I'm coordinator of school counseling services here in Virginia Beach City Public Schools. And as I've shared in one of the other testimonials, I'm just eager to, and happy to get an opportunity to share just a little bit of feedback and some thoughts from things that I've learned or things that I've experienced, as coordinator of school counseling, and really also from my personal life. And beyond, just interactions with others, whether staff members, those in my, immediate circle, whether those from family. So really, in this particular, I'll say again, conversation that I get a chance to have with you, you'll probably hear me say a little bit more about myself, and the last one that I'll do is probably the most about myself. But this one in particular, just from a professional stance and things that I've come to maybe embrace a little bit more in my day-to-day interactions with staff and with others, and maybe a way to help frame some of the things that you work with or have to work through every day. And so, just as a lead-in, um, in Virginia Beach, school division is 67,000. I know, again, not the same. Wake County is far larger, but in my role, I essentially oversee or provide support to 206 counselors. And as I always tell people, you get on any given day, I can name all of them by name and where they work, first and last name. So if you ever see me, please challenge me to that. But I say that because it's been quite the learning experience of providing support to so many different people, elementary through high school, in terms of counseling, and just the different backgrounds that they have, the different needs that have manifested during the pandemic, prior to the pandemic, as a result of things being, just being impacted by the pandemic. So I've tried with what we're going to share today, to think through these questions and think through these items from a standpoint of how can I help, how can I be there to support them, support my own family. I shared it before in one of the other testimonials, but I have two little ones. One just turned 2, the other one's about to turn 4. 2 girls, love them to death, as you can imagine. And whew, trying to be positive for them too with my wife, and just trying to do what I can for the staff and everybody else. So that balancing act is definitely there. And again, what I'm going to share in this one, I hope can be beneficial for you in some ways to maybe think through some issues, or think through some things that are manifesting in your life and how you can navigate, those concerns. So let's see. So the audience and learning intentions for this conversation be for parents, guardians, and caretakers, like one of the other sessions. But in this one, we're going to reflect on your current needs, your current resources, and possible supports, as well as considering, the concept of PERMA, which will go into more detail. It's based out of positive psychology, a different way to frame things, maybe even think through things and process them, to how to problem solve, how to engage in day-to-day activities, and to really focus on an overall well-being, the idea of being resilient through, essentially positivity. And then think about immediate self-care options. So we'll talk through some questions related to that, and even some things that I've been trying to focus on and do myself. So, let's look at these questions for a second. So what resources do you immediately have available every day? And this is essentially these 4 questions, a quick audit that it might take you some time to do. And I almost want to pause here for a few minutes to let you think through those. And really, I had to do the same. So what resources do you immediately have every day? And that could be a variety of things, from basic needs, not to jump into too much educator or psychology speak, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like we have to start, with just basic needs, and then getting into safety. So do we have food? Do we have water? Do we have shelter? Do we have clothing? So all of those, as small as it might seem, and I'll touch on, the idea of little things later on, but small as it might seem, what resources do you really have? Whether it's access to a phone, or you have a phone, or you have a car, those are things that you want to consider. From healthcare to, consistent employment, all of those. Then thinking through what resources can you access through the community or even through your network. So this goes beyond. So for example, maybe you don't have a car, but you do have access to public transportation. Maybe you don't have your own computer, but the school's able to issue you one. So you have access to those kinds of things. And it goes beyond that. Like you may not have, we're fortunate that we have really made it a focus to provide hotspots or mobile Wi-Fi essentially for our families, but not everybody has that. So then if you need to find that, where can you find that? And how can you then, wherever that might be? And I'll tell you some stories. One of the, I'd say the breaking moments in our school division, and this, again, thankfully was not necessarily this year, but the year before last, was when I saw a group of students hanging out in Harris Teeter. And I was wondering, like, why do I see them in here every day when I was getting out of work? And working in education, seeing that they're school age, it really started to dawn on me as I could see that they had books out as time went on. It wasn't just the first time I saw them, but maybe over the course of a few times of seeing them, that they were there to get the free Wi-Fi in Harris Teeter. Same thing said for Starbucks, McDonald's, and seeing students. We have a local church that opened up its doors because honestly, students just needed a place to come to have access to use their devices to get work done related to school. So how can we make sure that those positive, safe environments exist? So just thinking that through. So things that we have access to and listing those out. And then as you look at what you immediately have in your home, again, access to social media, like we talked about with Wi-Fi, TV, whatever it might be. And I say internet, adequate internet, so that you can maintain whatever level of function from a work standpoint or school standpoint in your home. Sometimes we don't have that, but again, do we have access to it? So those first two questions really build out what it is that you have to support you, to support your family. And that's your go-to. It really is like the bank of when a problem presents itself, where am I going? So what are your current needs? That takes a little bit longer. That goes back to something I actually shared in one of the other conversations, listing all that is impacting you, all that is affecting you, and things that you have to address every day, things that you have to think about every day, and things that you actually have to execute every day. So in doing so, you should then start to map out, do my resources match my needs? And whatever gaps you find is when you have to look out. You have to reach out for additional support. And that's where, from a school division, from local community services to other, not-for-profit or nonprofit organizations that can help fill those needs, we have to we have to use all of those channels to make that come together. So imagine, whether you've purchased something from IKEA, Wayfair, Overstock, Target, Walmart, whatever it might be. Many times we've been in that position where the box is furniture. We'll say that's the example. Furniture arrives, you're thinking you have all that you need. You open it up and there's 10,000 pieces and you're supposed to put all that together. My favorite is when they give you the one-page manual that has nothing for you to read and it's only pictures, or the flip where it's all that you read and then there's no picture to help you look at what it's supposed to be. Feel as if we're navigating much of the same, where you could see the end product, but you're struggling to know exactly which part has to go where to fit it together, let alone do you have the necessary tools? We know we don't have instructions right now, but do we have the necessary tools to make this work? And that can be frustrating. I, for one, have been frustrated by many, especially when the girls were coming into our homes for the first time, and I'm trying to put together things I never thought I'd have to put together. Always wanted to, just never had done it. And at that point, I struggled in asking for help, will openly admit. So looking at it in hindsight, probably would have taken me it would have done me well to look at those first two options. Look at what I have available to me, what I have access to, and then looking at when that product came to my home, what are my needs? Do I need an Allen wrench? Do I need a screwdriver? Would it be easier with certain tools? Like, I didn't think through any of that. So as we navigate these waters and we're thinking through this unprecedented time, really knowing what's in the bank of resources so that when problems present themselves, they don't seem, hopefully, as overwhelming, because you have something, but it's a matter of determining that what you have will match what you need, versus thinking that you don't have anything or not being aware of what you do have. And then any new problem becomes so much more exacerbated by the fact that you're not sure you're going to be able to address it. So it starts to just blow up, so to speak, because you're just not certain what the next step will be. So take that time if you can. And I tried to make this description a little bit longer to maybe entice you to start writing down a few things of what resources you do immediately have, who's able to do what in your home, because the resources could be a person, not just a tangible thing. And then what other resources can you access through the community, whether that's from childcare to self-care to even adult care for those in the sandwich generation, taking care of those who are older. And then looking again at your current needs, what can be done to address those, do your supports, match your needs, and then who can you contact to fill in those gaps. Okay, so once we're framing our issues, and back to the school counseling standpoint with that, I gave you the furniture piece, but really from a school counseling standpoint, man, how in the world are we reaching families? How are we going to provide instruction virtually? What does virtual school counseling look like? What does counseling look like? What are the best ways? What are the preferred methods? So we had to start to really go through and audit, like I said, what do we have available to us as a school division, which I'm sure, and I know Wake County has done too, to then best support schools, to best support families, so that they're in a position to experience success really across the board. So, but that schools and school staff can be in a position to better help the community. So it takes a lot of time. It's an ongoing process. As new things come up, you should probably do this at least once a week, just to think of the positive things in your life that that are there to help you, and to try to frame it in a way of, we can do this because we know that we have some tools, and when we can't do that, what is it or who is it that we can go to for that additional support? Which brings us to the concept of PERMA, which Dr. Seligman out of UPenn, and this has worked from years ago, but has continued to be expanded upon with positive psychology, and then into this acronym that you see here: positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. So we just talked about what is it that we have available to us, what is it that we have access to, what is it that our needs are, what are our current needs, and then how do we fill those gaps? And in a way of framing all of that, this is a little bit of a roadmap of how can I navigate each of those. How can I really navigate every day? But anytime an issue comes up, thinking it through from this standpoint. So positive emotions. This goes beyond just happiness. And as people say, you go from happiness to just joy, and being in that state of joy, and that takes a lot of effort, not easy to get there. But for some of us, certain emotions don't mean that we're in a good place. So really take the time to realize what positive emotions are for you. Because what's a positive emotion for me and what I've come to find out might be a positive emotion for somebody else, it's not the same. It almost comes back to one of the questions I started asking my counselors this year. One, taking time to ask more personal questions. Not that I did it before, but more strategic, like a wholesale survey. And when they heard survey, they thought it was going to go somewhere else. But it was a 15, 18 question survey all about, what do you like? When's your birthday? How do you prefer to receive recognition? Some prefer it publicly, some prefer it privately. So these are questions that you can ask your colleagues, your friends, even your children, just to learn a little bit more if you don't already know. Part of, favorite candy bar, favorite place you like to go out to eat, favorite TV show, sports team, whatever it is, so that I could get a better understanding of how to meet you where you are, so that I'm not assuming I know what you need. You've already told me what you prefer, and maybe I can then give you exactly what you need in that moment. So one of my positive emotions that I try to focus on is helping, but others may not feel the same. One of your positive emotions just might be, the idea of hope. And the fact that you can focus on hope for a day makes you feel good, and it's a positive emotion, and you go with it. I know hope is an idea, but sometimes we get into some of the thoughts related to confidence and amusement, and that puts you in a positive place. Sometimes it's the setting. So sometimes people need quiet. Like, if I can find quiet, I'm in a good place. Some people need energy and need to be around people. I know that's a tough spot to be in right now, but that's what you need. So be aware of what you need and then focus on that. And the positive emotions that you get by being in that environment or doing those certain activities, which we'll touch on in engagement really next, that's what we need to have in mind as we go through. So yes, there's going to be these needs floating out that we have to address bit at a time. At the same time, making sure that we're finding ways to experience these positive emotions throughout the day. So the engagement, if what we're doing every day may not align with what we're doing every day. We may not get the opportunity to engage in the activities that we know we find fun, or the ones that we know will elicit that positive emotional response. So we have to find those moments and really carve out the time to get them, which we'll touch on a little bit with self-care. So with that engagement piece, how can we find those activities? And if we can't find them, how can we fully immerse ourselves, not to the point of where we are forgetting about everything else, but in that moment to get the job done, that level of engagement. So what that might look like, and I'm again speaking from those I statements of I have struggled with this. So task comes via email, but I'm in a Zoom meeting and then my phone rings. And for whatever reason, there have been times where I still picked up the phone trying to read the email and listen to the Zoom meeting. I'm not engaged. And it ended up feeling worse after hearing what the person had to say on the phone, because honestly, they had to repeat it about 3 or 4 times versus choosing to be engaged in one activity. So that level of engagement tends to help with streamlining, limiting those inputs or the stimuli really, and you can get things done a little bit more efficiently. So then the relationships. So the relationships, of course, it's gonna be tough. And the quality of the relationships that you have in your life really do dictate a lot of the positive emotions that you will feel. And so much of what we feel we have going for us comes through the relationships that we have and the quality of those. So whether you can't be with someone in person or you can't go hang out like you used to, finding a way to still be engaged with those individuals, whether it be a phone, Duo, through Google, FaceTime, whatever it might be. But we got to find a way to do it. And we have to make sure that we're making time for it every day. So again, back to the world of work, that changed for me. I will openly admit, sometimes I get into that robotic stage of I just need to get the task done. And I don't mean to be rude. It's really more from a self-preservation standpoint of if I can get these tasks done, I know I'll feel better. Therefore, I might be in a position to want to reach out to people or engage in other activities. Problem is, by being in that mode, the quality of my relationships sometimes, not all of them, thankfully, I'm in a pretty good spot, I think. But the quality of my relationships was starting to suffer. So essentially, much like what COVID has taught us, this, one positive hopefully from this is just to slow down. So I started to slow down, and really being purposeful that every email I send starts off with how are you doing, or I hope all is well, and really meaning that. And that every phone call versus jumping right into the topic, taking the moment to say, how's everybody doing in your family? How are you doing? What have you been doing for fun? I'm trying to gain some new ideas. So engaging in different conversations just to maintain that quality relationships. Because again, the positive emotions for me come from helping. So if I feel as if I've helped that person just by listening, then I'm putting myself in a better place too. So meaning, which kind of ties with what I just shared, it made every interaction more meaningful. By me having the opportunity to speak with someone about their needs or just how things are going, and then engage in work, it made the work more meaningful. It made our interaction more meaningful. And it definitely made the next time that we reach out to one another, just more personal. And so finding meaning in what you're doing and understanding what the task is and how it connects to the larger goal goes a long way. For those who are still able to have, students or children participate in sports, I know, and my neighbors live it, not to get into what, but my neighbors right across the street, they're about 7 years ahead of where my wife and I are. They have 2 girls, same age difference, but they're about 7 years older. And I can see them with in their heads and what they've described as the drudgery of going to soccer. But the meaning behind taking your children to soccer is your child gets to have that opportunity to interact. And I know, and we've talked about it as neighbors, that seeing their enjoyment, although the task and finding the time and the sacrifice that it takes to get the kid from point A to point B on time and ready to go was stressful, but the enjoyment of seeing their child enjoy, of seeing their child engaged in the activity made it worth it. So finding meaning in those things that maybe make you feel stressed out, or are stressful, it goes a long way, right? Pays it forward many times over. So finding meaning in what you're doing, and then the sense of accomplishment. And I said this in one of the other testimonies, but you gotta you got to have micro wins. Like there's small wins. So I don't mean big accomplishment as in, the students graduated from college or the student graduated from high school or whatever the bigger accomplishment might be. It might be, and I shared it again in another session or conversation. It could be just that your checklist, you have 10 things on it, you got 2 of them done, or that you had your child able to engage in a lesson that the teacher had going online and your child hadn't done that before. So whatever level of accomplishment you can find it, focus on it, celebrate it, and then try to repeat it. So you getting time to actually take a 5-minute walk. How about this? You get 30 seconds to breathe in the morning. Like do a breathing exercise. We'll get to self-care on the next slide. But taking that moment to just, and just take in what you're seeing, reflect on the thoughts that you have, and just moving forward. So finding those accomplishments, not just the huge ones, but the small ones too. As a football coach, we would jokingly, not jokingly, but we would seriously tell kids, there are no little things. Every little thing matters. Therefore, there are no little things. So you got up, you got dressed, that's a win. You took a shower, another win. You took a shower 2 days in a row, another win. You got your kids to take a shower, that's a win. So however many wins that you can get, and those are the small steps. And it actually speaks to one of the tenets of positive psychology of 20 seconds. And the 20-second rule, which essentially to speed it along, how can you shave off 20 seconds of any process with some prep work? So for example, if you're going to take a walk tomorrow morning, where do you need to place your shoes to entice you to go ahead and make sure that you'll put them on and actually go for the walk the next day? So if you leave something on a chalkboard or a whiteboard as a reminder, do the reminder the night before so that when you wake up, ready to go. Or lay out the clothes that you need to wear in order to then go to the gym or to get ready for work. Whatever it might be to shave off 20 seconds. 20 seconds is the win. So if you do that actual act, there's one of your accomplishments for the day. I know for me, one of the biggest ones, people would say, like, you go to the gym and how often, for me, if I can just mentally get in the car, no matter what, like all I need to do is say 2 things. 1, did I pack the clothes? So I'll try to do that the night before, 20 seconds, right? And then 2, did I put the clothes in the car? So then 3, did I actually get in the car to go? And if those things happen, you just start to naturally go with it because you started the momentum in that direction. So think through the small accomplishments, think through ways to shave off 20 seconds, that 20-second rule, and make that work. There's also the Zorro circle effect, which is, you can't, the idea of Zorro, for those who know, not to speak in a way that not everyone understands who Zorro is, but the TV character, book character, character from the book, he was trying to take on everyone, right? And he had to retrain his brain that you really only need to take care of who's in your immediate circle. So if you could win the circle, the radius in which you can actually impact something, then you just won that area and you move forward just a little bit and then you win that area versus trying to take over an entire field. So you got to work your way around, win each area, and over time, you'll eventually take hold of what it is that you sought out to do to begin with. So 20-second effect or 20-second rule, and then at the same time, the Zorro circles, each telling you if you can shave off just a little bit of the work in advance, you're more inclined to do it. And of course, if it's a positive act, which we hope it is, more inclined to reinforce the behavior. Second part, only take on what you can in your immediate circle and then move forward. Then that immediate circle, then move forward versus trying to take it all on at once. You're not going to sprint through a marathon. It's just not going to happen. But that one step will go a long way. So self-care questions, just some things to think through, and I'll kind of read these out loud to you. But who will I connect with today? Back to relationships, meaning in life, engagement, positive emotions. Which opportunities do you have to engage with people in the day? Virtually, face-to-face, however that could be. Video versus phone, which one's better for you? Texting sometimes is another way, but how are you going to connect with people today? So we talked about the initial audit, about maybe doing that every week. This would be your daily self-care questions. When will I get into nature today? Whether that's walking from your house to your car, from your car to your office, wherever it might be, how are you going to get outside? And how can you be in that moment to just look around, take it in, take a deep breath, feel as if you've been in some kind of fresh air, because it can be invigorating. How will I move my body today? Again, we talk about working out. just getting up from your desk, walking around. I've had to become very more conscious of that in my own office because my level of activity of being able to go into schools and walk around in buildings, see students, none of that's happening. So I find myself needing to take that break of just stand up, walk around, come back, drink more water, something. But how will I move my body today in addition to needing to work out more? I know that nowhere near where I want to be right now. Or just going to the gym. So different ways of making that happen. What am I grateful for today? So this goes back to, the things that we have available to us. So that first question of the initial audit, what resources are available or what do I have access to? Therefore, be grateful for those things. And being aware of what you do have, and, don't be, well, there's so many different phrases that come to mind, but be happy with what you have, right? Don't think about what you don't have. Think about what you do have, appreciate what you do have, and be grateful for it. So listing those things out is one small step in doing so. And it has asking your children, your students, family members to do the same, and collectively having that conversation. We're talking about self-care, but branching that out, and then as a family unit or as a network, what can you be grateful for? Grateful for each other, grateful for specific actions people do regularly for you, lots of things. So think about that every day. Definitely links right to those positive emotions, maybe even helps with meaning and accomplishment, but can go a long way. And how will I be creative? And creative could be, I'm going to go a different route to work. What do we have control over, right? So I'm just going to take a different route for the simple fact that I don't have to look at the same thing that I've looked at every morning, and starting to come up with different routes that you can take. And the other self-care questions related to creativity, creativity, what you're going to eat, what you're going to read, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. So those small wins, again, those micro wins that you could have, could come in the form of creativity. And not everybody's going to know that you're engaged in those. Those are those personal moments where you have consciously made a decision to do something differently. And as a result of it, you kind of have your own internal smile of, yeah, I got that done today. So be thinking through those. Here's just a short list. I talk about breathing from time to time with students, especially to get them calmed down, and say here, there's multiple breathing apps, to way to center yourself I know we hear some of these terms, you're like, I'm not behind that. You don't have to get into all that. So I'll say it this way. I'm more of the pragmatist, scientific way of, all right, someone told me, like, how many breaths should you take in a minute? They really, if you wanted to engage in it, just for 1 minute, count the number of breaths you naturally take. Then think of it this way. You're really supposed to be breathing in for 5 and out for 5, which means you really should only be taking about 6 to 8 breaths per minute. So if you're able to do that conscious breathing just once a day, if not twice a day, once to begin your day and once to end your day, just a way for you to make sure that you actually took a moment to think through A, how you were feeling, and B, what you were thinking as you were going through that. Could be for you to just de-stress for the minute, do that as many times as you can, and however many times you do it, that might be your small accomplishment for the day. So keep those things in mind. And as I shared before, conducting that audit weekly if you can, and thinking through what you have access to and what you're able to have in your immediate environment that you're able to use and work as a resource for yourself. Keep PERMA in mind daily. Put those positive emotions, the engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. Hopefully it's something that as you go through and you're trying to fill each of those buckets every day, just one thing in each of those buckets every day, either for yourself, recognizing it for your family, recognizing it for a student, however that might play out. But I know for me, I've had to look at that from a school counseling lens of how can I help these other school counselors recognize the positive things in their life, and then use that same understanding to then help families to do the same. And hopefully some of this today is helpful in you being able to do so for yourself as well as for your family, and looking for it, like changing that lens through which you're seeing day-to-day interactions. And if it's a moment of, I'm going to talk to somebody I haven't talked to in a long time, or I am going to actually try to reach out to somebody who might be in need, or you might find a way to go volunteer in the community, even if it's a way of giving or donating or dropping off or whatever it might be, mowing your neighbor's lawn or raking their leaves. And that way it's still socially distant, but you're doing something to benefit others. So keep that in mind, and then emphasize self-care every day. And as much as we say we don't have time for it, it comes in small, I say, packages. There's the little wins that we just have been talking about, whatever that can be, from breathing to walking to being outside to reading. Some of us need a nap, need a mind, watch our sleep, but eating healthy, whatever it's going to be for self-care, making sure that you're having that conscious effort and being present in when you know that you're doing it, so that you recognize that it was another win, so to speak, for you. So again, Wake County, I appreciate you letting me share these thoughts with you. I hope some of them are helpful in terms of how you're thinking through your day to day. And there's some resources that I'll try to share, and maybe they'll be able to be linked out. I don't want to include all those kinds of links here, because then you can't actually click on them if you're watching a video, but we'll see what we're able to share and make available. And I'll definitely share my contact information in one of the vignettes, so that you'll have that if you don't already get it through other means, and maybe we can connect in a way to talk through a process that works for you. But take care. And I hope again that this was something that will help you, or help you help someone else.